away we go.
Hello, it's Chaplin 73, and we are joined today by another artist, somebody I've had the pleasure of painting next to at Weston-super-Mare. It's Douglas Adam Karson. How are you?
I am doing really well. Thank you for asking.
Good, good. Well, I'll just jump in with the first question because it gives you an opportunity to introduce yourself to people who don't know you. So, who are you? What do you do? And where are you based?
My name is Douglas Adam Karson. I'm a painter, poet, father, business owner, entrepreneur, and I'm based in Bristol, but soon to be relocating to the southern seaside town of Bournemouth.
Fabulous, fabulous. So how soon will you be moving to Bournemouth?
A few weeks now,
Oh
like
wow.
imminent, like actually starting to think about like getting a storage unit and bringing boxes down and the actual like, oh
Yeah.
my God, it's actually happening kind of time.
And
But through
you're excited about the relocation, yeah?
yeah. It's we're moving mostly to be closer to family. I've got two beautiful young children, and we've got they're my niece that will be in the same school as her, and
Oh,
it's gonna
fab.
be beautiful. Yeah, and the
Yeah,
seaside's not so bad.
yeah. I mean, it's quite a vibrant art scene in Bristol. What's it like in Bournemouth?
It's growing. I mean, going to nicer lifestyles, and that includes the seaside.
Mhm.
Bournemouth is it's cheaper than Bristol. It's got a university, Arts University Bournemouth, and University of Bournemouth. I'm actually probably going to be doing a spray jam in Freshers Week with Arts University Bournemouth, which I'm pretty excited about. That's like almost, there's a lot of things in my life that feel like, God is telling, yeah, that's the right place to go at the right time. Because, when things start just falling into place in a way that feels
Yeah.
really organic,
Uh-huh.
there's just a lot of that stuff happening. So it's cool. Yeah, it's exciting.
So I'll move on to the next question. What or who has influenced your creative style or direction of your creative output?
Um, I mean, I'm quite a polymath, so it's a bit all over the shop. I think the first, you know, art I really connected to was Picasso. And I know that sounds probably hackneyed and cliche, um, but realistically, that the freedom of line, the minimalism, the ability to kind of portray really complicated ideas with really simple shapes, the exploration, the reinvention, like all of those things really appealed to me at the time.
Mhm.
Still do, and of course, as I got older, I got really into Rothko and Mondrian. And now, you know, I'm just kind of into the unknown,
Yeah.
into the space of like, well, what do I want to say? With all that knowledge and history. As a poet, it was more Keats was my first love in
Mhm.
poetry, and then Buddy Wakefield is probably my favorite contemporary poet. That's I've read Stunt Stunt Water many times. It's a great collection. So
Yeah.
yeah, but like that poetry really feeds into um it's for me it's a cohesive whole. It's not
Mhm.
separate things necessarily. So
Yeah, I mean, I completely get where you're coming from with Picasso. I know it sounds a bit cliche, but I too am a very big fan of Picasso's art because he was just so versatile. He adapted to so many different things. His sculptures, I've got a book on Picasso's sculptures. They're very often overlooked. I went to the Picasso Museum in Paris when I was over there, and there's like paintings on plates and all
yeah.
sorts of weird
Well, it's
stuff that.
also it's also like they're more impactful than you think they are, and it's not clear why. And it's
Mhm.
similar with like Van Gogh. When you see Van Gogh, and there's been so much done, like the kind of 3D experience and the movie where they did all of it as oil paintings. There's been so much of that kind of hoopla around it that you forget how impactful the actual paintings themselves really are. When you
Yeah.
see them in person in a museum or anything. It's similar with like the water lilies, Monet, and those things. When you see these really spectacular pieces of art, they hit you. They really, and then we get inundated with screens and imagery, but actually there's something to seeing a really special piece of painting because I don't know, like I said, I was telling you before the chat we were I'm a bit of a tech person. Like one of the real issues with screens is even the best screens on earth cut out half of the colors that our eyes can see. So I
Yeah,
mean, we're talking about the optimum premium 4K retina display. Now our eyes don't know consciously that we're not seeing half the colors, but our subconscious definitely knows that is different than looking at paint, and
yeah,
paint does not lack that diversity in that spectrum. So there's this real range there that seeing things in person matters, and scale matters when you
yeah, yeah,
do stuff in
absolutely.
person. So yeah, it's just a different experience, and yeah, but Picasso stuff, yeah, it's just all over the shop. I love it.
I was actually blown away actually when you say about scale. I was actually blown away because one of the paintings that I assumed would be really big was actually really small, and I'd only ever seen it in a book, and I just always assumed that it was quite a large painting, and it was literally like about that big,
Yeah,
when I saw
I
it, and
actually
the amount of detail that was in it, it was just like, oh my goodness, I just assumed that that would be a lot bigger, but
I did a piece a few last week. I think it was last week, and I think it's not. And I've done big pieces. I did a 12-foot Medusa head.
mhm,
But this piece is it's just this little old piece, and it's something really basic. It's just but it holds space in a way that I've never made a work that holds space that way. And as an artist, I'm like, I look at that piece and I'm like, whoa, that thing holds a wall. It's this tiny little piece and it holds a
mhm,
whole wall. It doesn't need to be big.
yeah,
Um, could I have made a piece that small that could hold space that well if I hadn't made a 12-foot piece? Probably not, because
mhm,
it's all processed. You have to understand how bigness works, how smallness works, how detail
yeah,
works, and that all comes from you know ex- experimenting with different scales and understanding kind of how people interact with those different things.
yeah,
But yeah, this is the first piece I think I've ever made where I feel like if it was up in a gallery or museum, people would want to get closer to it to look at it,
mhm.
and that's a really special thing for me. So it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, isn't it, that there's a lot of pressure on us at the moment to create things for social media, etc. But you've got to do the art, haven't you?
Yeah,
You've got to do it to experience it and to develop. And
yeah. There's no substitute for just doing stuff.
yeah,
And if you do enough of it over a long enough period of time, you do get better,
yeah,
obviously. Like if you're really, especially if you produce this consistently as I have for a long time, you end up starting to just be able to feel it out a bit more, and trust the process a bit more, and understand that worst case scenario, you make a shitty painting, and also most of the paintings you make are going to be shitty. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, most of the stuff you make is going to be rubbish. Like that is just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, it's all part of the journey, isn't it? And at the time, you might not think it's rubbish, but then like 10 years later, you'll look back at it and go, God, that was terrible, compared with what I'm doing now,
It doesn't mean you don't like it still.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
like I have a piece that I did very early in my career. It's like a wolf, you know, in a canyon or something. It's awful, but I love it. It's like I remember painting that. It's like
yeah.
one of the first times I fell in love with making art was that piece. And the other people are like, well, did a 5-year-old do that? I'm like, no, I did it, but it was like 25 years ago.
Yeah, I've got some pieces from my past that are in a very different style to what I paint in now, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah, they help me get where I am now, and I'm sure that in 10 years' time I'll look at what I'm doing now and go, what was that? And it's
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm as at the moment though, I'm just like really just enjoying making art.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not, there's nothing more nor less to it than that.
yeah,
Um, and the more I enjoy it, I think the better the art gets because it
yeah, and I
because it
think
comes
there's
through. It
definitely
comes through.
there's definitely a kind of therapeutic practice side of art that people quite often forget. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure on people to create a product and for it to be something that gets 100 likes on Instagram or whatever. But actually, there's a lot to be said for just slapping paint on them and
I
playing
mean,
and
yeah, the issue
experimenting.
becomes store as I'm sure you know, the issue with art becomes storage at some point.
Yeah, 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 definitely,
It's like,
definitely.
where do I put all this stuff?
You're gonna need a bigger shed. Yeah.
I'm gonna need a bigger shed. That's the one. Yeah. Studio's packed to the gills, man.
So I knew a little bit about Keep Art It, but when we had
Mm,
a chat earlier, you mentioned something called Art 100. Do you want to give
yeah.
us a bit of a overview of what that's all about?
So yeah, so I'll talk about Art 100 first because it's like what I'm working on now. So a lot of the lessons I learned through Keep Art It. So Keep Art It's my company. I
Mhm.
set it up in over lockdown in 21. You know, it's got a mission to share art now. Yeah, share.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one. But I realized quickly that most of the work I was doing in the gallery shopping center, which is where our gallery and kind of art space was located, was community oriented. It wasn't
Hmm.
ever going to be profitable. And I spent 3 years listening to the people who came into the gallery shopping center in Bristol, which is a shopping center full of pound lands and savers and discounts. Not to
Yeah,
throw
yeah,
shade on any
yeah.
of those things, but that is what the space is. And I'm sure everybody has a shopping center like that in their town or a high street space like that. And I listened to the people there and said, what do they need from an art gallery? And they need a space that is cheap, it is approachable, and it is accessible. So we set up, me and my business partner set up Art 100. We set out to be the Poundland of art galleries. Um, we committed to no fees for artists ever. So
Hmm.
it's a free display space, and we've done a lot of innovation around how to make that possible. So basically, any artist can bring any 5 works and display them for up to 4 weeks for free. And then that's forever. You know, as long as you want to keep bringing us works, you can keep bringing us works, and we will do our best to display them with
Oh wow.
dignity in a well lit space. 60% goes to the artist of anything that sells. Now, the way we've done that is we've put a cap on price.
Hmm.
So to keep our admin down, we basically say all artists have to price their works at 50, 75, or £100. And that means that we don't have to like photograph and individually list everything. We can
Yeah,
just say, right, is it a green sticker artwork, a blue sticker artwork, or an orange sticker artwork? And yeah, so we're starting to see if we can grow that program. And yeah, it's a thriving gallery space in Bristol. We do free art therapy sessions on, I think, starting on the 7th this next month. I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, so Art 100 is this thing, and we think we can build a national network of these kinds of galleries that connect with local businesses and supply local businesses with artworks from the local artists we're working with. And then, you know, we think we can do something really cool with it. It's really exciting, actually, because it's really providing value to businesses. It's providing value to the community, and it's providing value to artists. And if you can get all three of those, really seeing the value in what you're doing, you can kind of make magic. Um,
yeah,
so
yeah.
we're trying to make magic here. You know, it's nothing more, nothing less. You know,
No small task
no small task, catching lightning in a bottle, simple stuff.
then. Brilliant, brilliant. I mean, it sounds really like one of the issues I've always had with art galleries is that they're not accessible to your average
Yeah,
person on the street. And it sounds like you've really listened to the community in which you were part of, and gone away and scratched your head and thought about how how to
well,
make that art more accessible to people and how to get people to come into an art gallery and not feel that it's not a space for them, which
yeah.
quite often it
I mean,
does.
we've buddied up with a retro video game arcade, so it's
Brilliant.
it's an interesting trial of a space about how you can kind of think about spaces differently. And it's actually going really, really well. And we're kind of expanding into this new subscription model, which hopefully subsidizes the whole thing. Because the problem with selling artworks at £100 is, of course, that's not, especially if you're paying out 60% to the artist and 10% to a charity, then
Yeah.
30% of £100 for 3 works sold a week. That ain't gonna pay no one's. Then it's not gonna be sustainable
It's not
financially.
even going to
So
cover the electric, is it, in this day and age?
so we've got a plan for how to address that, which is the kind of local business subscription model. And yeah, I think we've signed up our first client yesterday, actually, which is really like, whoa, that works.
Fabulous.
It works. It
Yeah.
works. It's alive.
And are you taking that and duplicating it in Bournemouth? Or?
So yeah, my business partner is going to keep running the gallery in Bristol,
Hmm.
and she'll keep. Yeah, we have a fairly clear idea of what each other's roles and strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah.
And so she's going to keep running it in Bristol. And I'm going to run it in Bournemouth. I have a friend who is keen on trying it in London. I'll talk to you and see if you want to try it out in Wales. And I think because we think it could work anywhere actually. And if it works in two or three places, it works everywhere. So
Yeah.
we're looking to grow it. I don't want to get too involved because one of the things that's happened with me as I've gotten older is as much as I realize I like making things, I don't necessarily like being in them. I like making them and then seeing them made. I don't like being the
Yeah.
guy who runs it. That's not necessarily my strongest set of skills and my in the best use of my dynamism. I'm really good at getting things started and kind
Yeah.
of putting underlying structure and kind of ideology behind something that makes it tick over when once I'm not there. But
Hmm.
am I good at kind of the operations and the sales and the marketing and the ideology and the why? I can do that, but
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like it's as you get older, you start to know yourself a bit better and understand that actually you should be going towards your strengths and that'll be where you really thrive and can offer more out because you're not being drained doing things that you're not very good at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I can see that model working down here in Cornwall. It's kind of, it's something we've got quite a large amount of community interest companies, a lot of charities work in Cornwall. There's a lot of poverty in Cornwall.
yeah,
Yeah. So you have got quite a lot of highbrow, quite expensive galleries in Cornwall as well. So you've already got that art market for the people who can afford the art, but
yeah,
it does exclude quite a big demographic across the county. So yeah, I could
yeah.
see that model working in Cornwall.
Well, it's also like one of the issues both me and Jenny, and one of the reasons we set it up was there's no like entry point for artists.
Hmm.
You either get picked up by a gallery or you basically have to just rough it
Yeah.
and paint on the street and kind of you're not going to make it. You know what I mean? And we really wanted to make something where either early, mid, or even late career artists who wanted to try what new styles might vibrate in the community and what it looks
Hmm.
like on a wall in an exhibition without having to either have gallery representation or having to pay for a gallery to show their work. We wanted to create a vehicle for that to happen, and that's a really important part of the motivation behind me and Jenny putting it together. Was neither one of us have a gallery that represents us. I've been
Yeah.
painting for 18 years. I spent at least 12 of those years busting my ass, reading books, sending out pamphlets, going networking. And it never clicked that I got a gallery that was really keen to work with me. And, so I ended up setting all this up because I needed somewhere to show my work. And I wanted to create something where someone who is early in their career and doesn't know what, maybe they started making work for mental health reasons, or maybe they just make it as a hobby, or maybe they make it in their off time, or maybe they want to do it full time, but they just
Yeah.
need somewhere to start showing work.
Hmm.
Because the thing is, I mean, being in gallery is great, but just because you're in a gallery doesn't mean your work is going to sell.
No.
Like, and there's this assumption that, oh, if I was just in a gallery, then people would buy my work, and that's not how it works. People are going to want to buy your work if they want to buy your work.
Hmm.
I can't describe it any other way. And at some for some artists, people people do buy their work as an investment. But you're talking about the Cristiano Ronaldo of the art world.
Yeah.
Lots of people play football, very few of them Messi. You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like, and it's the same in the art. Lots of people paint, very few of them become Damien Hirst. If you paint to think, oh, I could become that, it's actually pretty far fetched, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely.
just having somewhere where you can workshop things and show things for free, I think is really important because it's one thing to make work, like we talked about, you just have to make work, but actually you need to not just make it, you also need to show it to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
People that you need to see how people react to it, and you have to listen. If you show your work to 100 people and nobody wants to buy it, it's probably not sellable, and that's not anyone else's fault for not liking it. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
your fault for making it either. Make the work you feel passionate about, but don't get angry if people don't want to buy it if you didn't make it for them to buy.
Yeah, I completely get that. I think sometimes it's m- trying to get your art in front of the right people, because I know lots of talented artists who are very successful, and their work is brilliant, technically fantastic. But I wouldn't want it on my wall. But just because I don't want it on my wall doesn't mean that somebody else won't want it on their wall. But it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's a matter of finding your audience and finding, the
Mm,
people that do like
yeah.
your work. And sometimes that can be a slog, definitely. But sometimes it can just click, and you'll find your people, and people will be interested in your art.
I
But
I would say for me, it was hard to know who my audience was
yeah,
until I knew who I was.
yeah. And a lot of the art advice out there is, just find your audience, and think of who your ideal audience would be. I still don't know who my ideal audience are. And
But
the
it might,
people
yeah.
who do buy my work on the odd occasion that I sell a piece are very different. So they're not a type, if you know what I mean.
That's
And
always
and
been one of the
maybe
issues
that's
with
just
art.
my
Yeah.
art, but
No, no, no. That's, I mean, like I said, I've been selling art for a very long time, and there's a clear demographic to the general age and socioeconomic class of people who do buy art as a broad
Mhm.
spectrum, because um, most of them are either between 18 and 23, or between, say, 40 and 60. That's just because those are the people who have the time and the energy to go looking at art and then
Yeah,
thinking about buying it. But that is clearly not the case. That's everyone and all the people all the time. Um, yeah, I guess but like it is it's fascinating.
yeah.
I actually, I'm not very good at thinking about those kinds of things. I'm not gonna lie. That's not my strongest. I've always
Yeah.
struggled to kind of
Well,
think about
well, it kind of leads
who
us
to sell to.
nicely on to the next question, because we've just discussed for the last 10 minutes of how difficult it is to sell art. What advice would you give to somebody
Uh,
wanting to develop their creative output into an art career?
Understand what that means.
Yeah, yeah.
Understand what an art career is. If
Mhm.
you want to be a professional artist, does that mean being an illustrator? Does that mean being an animation artist? Does that mean uh, being a video editor? Like how do you define being an artist? I think for you and me, we talk about it as being painters.
Mhm.
And it actually took me a long time to accept that painting really is the thing I want to do the most. I don't
Yeah,
want to I don't want to be a digital video editor. I don't want to be a poet. I don't want to be a musician. I don't want to. I love those things. They turn me on. They're part of my life. But professionally, um, I don't love them enough to go through the slog that it takes to become professional at it in a very competitive space.
yeah,
So I'd say find out try to, I mean, a lot of what I was saying earlier about selling work as well is the more you know yourself and the more you can put yourself into your art, um, the more you will connect with it. And the more you connect with the work you're making, the more that work will connect with other people.
yeah.
Um, and that is something that has been almost a recent discovery for me. I mean, I don't know if you know about my kind of painting style journey, um, but for 10 years almost, or I'd say 8 years, I made like this very strict type of work where I had three arbitrary rules around color, composition, and balance. Um, but there were no other restrictions on what work I made, and I made hundreds of works in that body of work, and it was all about kind of philosophy and theology and Eastern and Western and yin and yang, and it was very deep and heavy, and wasn't very fun. And then basically this year I just said, sod it. I'm just gonna do the opposite of what I've always tried to do. So I always tried to make really good artwork. So I decided to try to make really crappy, shitty, stupid artwork. And I've never had this much fun painting in my life. Um, so if what you're doing isn't working, try something different. That would be my
Yeah,
advice. If
yeah,
you've been painting the same thing for 6 years, and it's not making you happy, and you're not selling it, totally change what you're doing. Try something completely different stylistically, something that you look down on. Try drawing, like Peanuts cartoons or something. I don't know. I
Yeah,
started drawing for me, it was emojis. I just was like, fuck it, I'm going to start painting emojis in oil. And it's like, yeah, so yeah, exactly. I started with
yeah,
the
yeah.
poo one. And it's like, yeah, if it's not working, don't blame other people that it's not working. Just try something different. Be creative, not just by creating things, but by creating a new version of what you create.
Hmm.
Go wild with your experimentation,
Yeah.
you know, and challenge yourself. Like try something from an old master. Try to recreate a Van Gogh watercolor or
Hmm.
a Van Gogh sunflower. Try to recreate something that a great artist has done. See how well you can do it.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll be something that clicks that you didn't change materials, go from spray paint to acrylic or whatever. Just
Yeah.
wildly shift your practice around and see what happens. And change your whole philosophy around it too. You can. You're allowed to.
Yeah, I think sometimes we're a bit reluctant to, because we get stuck in a rut as an artist. You see a lot of artists who don't enjoy their art anymore because they're painting the same thing because they know that's what sells. And you see that a lot in Cornwall, holiday destination where you've got lots of pictures of boats and seaside views and the cliffs and things like that, and they're just repetitively painting the same thing over and over again because they know that when the tourists turn up in July and August, they'll buy it all up and love it and take it home with them. But they no longer enjoy what they do. It's more of a chore than a pleasure. So
Well,
it's
then it's the old one for me, one for them.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's what I've been
definitely.
doing recently. I mean, I was doing like a Mario for the arcade today. It didn't give me that much joy, but it's painting, and you know, tomorrow I'm going to go back to working on my vegetables and knickers. So,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
for me. It's like do the. I mean, that's been the task of editors and videographers for forever. Is oh, I don't want to do actors. They do the one for me, one for them. So, and that's you got to find that balance in your life, but. If you're making a living painting or in any creative discipline, you're one of the lucky ones. So, because
yeah,
there is
yeah,
there is an element of luck involved in it. No matter how much anybody tries to, well, not luck. I mean, if you believe in luck, I had this whole discussion, but there's an element of
chance.
chance. Yeah, there's an
Mm.
element of I don't know. It's yeah. I don't necessarily believe in luck because I think everything kind of happens for a reason. If you believe everything happens in a reason, then you can't believe in luck because well, then
Yeah.
if it doesn't happen, then it wasn't supposed to happen. I mean,
Yeah,
it gets really complicated, but yeah, it does. Some people have found a way to live a more joyful life with their professional balance, including in
yeah,
art, is what I would
yeah,
say.
definitely, definitely. And they're very lucky to have found that. There's hundreds and hundreds of undiscovered talented artists out there who will never be discovered, and they may have a lot more talent than the ones who do get discovered. So
God, I don't even know what it means to get discovered anymore.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like I think that whole kind of I've kind of got to a place now where I don't know. I think you got to find what works for you. I found strangely for me, I found the path through the business route was kind of a really good way for me to connect to my art and connect to people better. Um, but everybody will have a different path, and actually, what makes painting in particular so difficult is there's not necessarily a set trajectory. There's not as many clubs. For musicians, there's loads of clubs that have paying gigs.
yeah,
And then if you're good, you can get better because you get that immediate feedback. Where if you're a painter, you work on something for, 6 months in your studio, then you have to find somewhere to show it. Then you don't get to see the people necessarily reacting to it. So how do you get that feedback loop that is so important for the arts? And trying to find ways to get that feedback into your practice, to listen to people's, reflections, to get people into your studio or get your work out and see how people are actually connecting to it. Is it working? Are you connecting with people? Because if you're not connecting with people, then they're not going to buy it. And whether those artists are bored about making their work of boats and cliffs or not, they are connecting with the people coming to see their work. And
Yeah.
there's something really powerful in that. So it's just really important to understand, who's coming where, why are they coming, what are you looking to accomplish with that work? And there isn't necessarily like a discovered element to it. People will buy the things they like, and if enough people like your work enough, more people will want to buy it, in which case more people will come to you and say, hey, I heard you make this kind of awesome work, can I have some of that? And it's not more complicated than that, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
um and also being discovered can be catastrophic to your career.
Yeah.
Sachi back in the day, he would go into art colleges, and he would pick an artist from each graduating class, and he would buy their collection for £200,000 or whatever. What sounds like a huge amount of money, but then what he would do is he would go sell each of those 100 paintings for £50,000 each. And
Yeah.
of the artists that Sachi worked with, only three or four were able to weather that storm of
Yeah.
coming out of art school and becoming crazy famous. Not many of them were able to continue being creative because it was catastrophic for them. So being
Mm.
discovered isn't always the best thing. Enjoy painting for painting. you
Yeah.
know don't worry about why, don't worry about what. I would say try and get better however that you define that. If you
Mhm.
define it as technically better, like you want to go to drawing classes and you really want to learn perspective, do that. For me, it was always about color. How do you mix color? What does color look like? How do people's eyes interact with shape and color? That's what I really have obsessed over for many years, is kind of color, structure, balance.
Mhm.
And for those things, I'm really good. In terms of a draftsman, I'm average. So find the things that turn you on, go towards them, lean into your strengths. It's the only way, because if you're not enjoying it, what the hell's the point? It's a
Very
hard,
true.
it's a, it's an emotionally raw way to live, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's worth remembering. One question left. What's in store for the future? What have you got upcoming that you want to share? Or obviously
uh
we've touched on your imminent
yeah,
house move, and
so moving soon. Going to be taking Art 100 into Bournemouth, hopefully. uh Keep Art It has shifted to just being more about my work and me painting. I'm actually currently doing a new series, which I kind of touched on. It started with the emojis, but it's snowballed into vegetables in knickers. I'm calling it my fruit and veg series, which is really fun. And it's a really interesting thing, because I used to make work and be like, oh, I want that to go there. But this work from the beginning, I've made it in. I've conscientiously um, not actively said I want it to go anywhere. I've kind of let the work evolve, and like a baby reaching for a nipple, try to find the milk.
yeah, yeah,
Like so that work at some point will emerge into the world, and you will see it, and it will be glorious. And yeah, keep it's those are the main things. The move, the new business, which is Art 100. By the way, if you want to contribute to Art 100, if you want to participate, if you're in Bristol, if you're in the Southwest, you are welcome. Art 100 gallery space. It's on Instagram. There's an
yeah.
online form. You just submit, set up a date to bring in your work, set up a date to collect them. That's it. That's it.
Brilliant.
Um,
Yeah.
if you live anywhere in the UK and you're interested in kind of setting up an Art 100 and figuring out what we do, please, we're looking to see which cities this works in. We believe it's a sustainable way to set up a community arts hub
Mhm.
that works with local businesses, and we're looking to see how far we can push this thing. Um, and yeah, you know, sharing peace, love, and color, man. That's
Brilliant. Brilliant.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending the time with me this evening, and having a chat and telling people what you're all about.
Oh,
It's
Darren,
it's been an
been a real
absolute
pleasure.
pleasure to speak to you again. And I'm sure our paths will cross again at some point.
Oh, thank you so much, and for all of you people out there who are listening or watching, thank you for tuning in and listen to us for a little chin wag about art and creativity.
Lovely. Well, if you like what you've heard and seen today, then please hit the subscribe button at the bottom and subscribe to my channel. I'm sure there'll be more interviews to come. And once again, thank you, Douglas Adam Karson.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.